Hey, kids, welcome in. Wow, I'm loud. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Wednesday edition begins right now with the Matt Murphy portion of the broadcast day. It's our episode 446. Allow us to get the pleasantries out of the way. We'll get into the meat and potatoes of the broadcast. Those pleasantries include reminding you of the various ways you can participate in the program, such as on the Super Talk television side of things. We'll get into more of that in just a moment. You can also just passively listen. You can participate by super texting us or calling in on the program at any point over the next 180 minutes. That's what I control. 615-737-9986. 615-737-WWTN. Now, there's internet streaming that goes on. You can carry us wherever you go with your phone. If you download our app, that's the best way to do it, in my opinion. That's the way that I listen to Nashville's Morning News and Chris Hand, at least until I get into the automobile, and then I flip over to the 99.7 on the FM dial side of things. And then there's also Super Talk TV. I watch occasionally Dan Mandis and the rest of the crew on Nashville's Morning News, and I hope that you watch. If you're able, tune us in. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, we're always there. Episode 446 gets entitled by our executive producer of the broadcast. That's Belle K. He stands behind the glass, making sure that everything that comes out of our speakers sounds as good as humanly possible. And today's episode is entitled
Matt Murphy loves a good bus station, train station, or workstation. Libertarian lunch, noon to 3. Feel free to crack a cold one.
That's true. I'm trying to get the reference. I'm trying to figure out if you're suggesting that I'll be standing at a bus station after this weekend. No?
No, those are all things where those things stop.
That's true. Very good.
Bus station, train station, workstation.
Mm-hmm. I wish I had a workstation. I mean, technically, I have a workstation.
You're at it right now.
I am, yeah, right, I guess. We will, there's some developments. Joe Biden's a crook, right? We know that. We feel as if when the mainstream media picks up on some of the evidence that Joe Biden is a crook, they're months behind, and that's because they are. The mainstream media, and I'm talking about the hashtag never CNNs of the world. I call them hashtag never CNN because you should never watch CNN. CNN is a garbage network full of garbage people spewing garbage. I watch CNN so you don't have to. I'm doing it right now, as a matter of fact. I'm watching this garbage because it is an occupational hazard of mine, and I do so as a favor to you. It's a commitment to you. ABC, CBS, NBC, Washington Post, New York Times, these are organizations that are bought and paid for by the Democrat Party. They become propaganda wings of the Democrats. And so we do not expect them to cover stories that will be negative toward Democrats unless and until they have to. And they're about to have to. They're about to have to with regard to Joe Biden and his corruption. Joe Biden is a crook. I remember a time when the president of the United States of America was accused of being a crook. He felt compelled to go on television and say, "Oh, well, I am not a crook."
Give me a break.
Not nowadays, though. He hides. He hides in the White House or Rehoboth or whatever beach he's on this weekend, in Delaware, wherever he's going on vacay. He hides. Well, you can't hide from the receipts, which is one of my favorite new terms. I got the receipts, baby. Well, we've got the receipts. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer released some of those receipts in the form of bank records this morning, actually, showing President Joe Biden previously took a $40,000 check from his family members soon after they received the money from Chinese business associates, something that Joe Biden has steadfastly claimed he has never done. Comer posted on X the bank records, which show how various Biden family members took money from Chinese business associates and wired it to Joe Biden shortly thereafter. They are following the money, and the money plainly lays out how Joe Biden benefited and enriched himself and his family because of his name and his position as Vice President of the United States of America.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier.
Well, Mr. President, the receipts tell a different story. Now, don't they? Comer said in the video release, and I'll actually play the video. You don't need to hear me say it. You need to hear James Comer say it. But it comes officially from the Oversight Committee website, where he laundered this money. It landed in Joe Biden's bank account in the form of a personal check. This is following up on the fact that Jim Biden, Joe Biden's brother, James or Jim Biden, also threw $200,000 his way in the aftermath of getting other money, something that the Biden family, oh, well, that's just coincidental. You know, he got a loan and he was paying that loan back because, you know how brothers do. They're just cutting each other $200,000 checks. You know, who hasn't done it? I mean, just the other day, Bell Kay and I were out and about, and Bell said, hey, Murph, little light this month. How about a $200,000? Sure, Bell. No problem. We're like brothers. I mean, why wouldn't I do that for someone like yourself? You can pay me back anytime. Once you get that money coming in from the Chinese or the Ukrainians or the Russians or wherever else you happen to be doing business on the family name, you know, those various business interests that I regularly have telephone conversations with while my son, Hunter, is with them at a dinner table before he goes out and hires some prostitutes and gets some crack cocaine. You know, those people, when they pay you that money back, you can pay me back.
And by the way, I do have some grift coming in from Czechoslovakia, so we'll be square soon.
You know, you won't hear us talk bad about Czechoslovakia on this show because we're bought and paid for by the Czechs. The Czechs signed the checks. And so we're pro-Czech. Both Czechs. The Czechs and the Czechs. We love them. BK, get a live in studio. Oh, this is a great suggestion, Bell. I agree with 0388 as I make my way over to the super text line, 615-737-9986. Some are suggesting that you should get a live in studio interview with Dolly Parton on her movie release of her rock and roll album coming out. We love Dolly. Don't we love Dolly?
I think that's putting it lightly when it comes to you.
I'm a little bit obsessed with Dolly Parton.
A little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's some assumptions going on in the super text line that I haven't made overtures in that direction.
As wonderful of a human being as she is, and she is, the demands on her time are great. And therefore, there are many, many roadblocks on the path from here to an interview with Dolly Parton. Those roadblocks are there intentionally to prevent obsessive talk show hosts like myself from getting anywhere near Dolly. But if you know her, let her know how much I love her. And I always have, since I was a wee lad. And we would love to talk to her about the release of her rock and roll album or anything else on her mind, imagination library, whatever. We are always an open book for Dolly Parton or really any of the, Dolly especially. She's high on the list, right? But back to the news of the day. So you got that going on, and we'll discuss it today, and we'll talk about it with you. Whether or not the mainstream media avoids it or manages to avoid it remains to be seen. Joe Biden is a crook. Will America learn about this? Will America demand he answer for this? And by answer, I mean answer questions from a curious media. Right now, the mainstream media, I find it fascinating how incurious they become when a Democrat becomes president of the United States or when a Democrat is in a position of authority and they're accused of something. They just become incurious. They're totally incurious about the relationship between Hunter and Joe and what Joe knew and when he knew it regarding Hunter and Jim and Joe and their family business. Just uncurious at all. Just not curious whatsoever about any of it. They were incurious about Hillary Clinton and her homebrewed server back in 2016. Just incurious about any of that. Just incurious whatsoever about, Bill Clinton meeting with Loretta Lynch on the tarmac in Phoenix, Arizona. Just completely uncurious about why that meeting was held and what was discussed during that meeting. And on and on and on it goes. Joe Biden used 3 separate pseudonym emails in which we now know, at least according to the National Archives, 80,000 emails were engaged in that they have access to that we know about. And we only know about it because some in the mainstream media who believe in the truth actually filed a Freedom of Information Act to get this. But the rest of the media just incurious. Just really, is that a story? Nah, that's not really a story. You don't think it's a story? You don't think it's a story that Joe Biden might be compromised by the Chinese? You don't think it's a story that Joe Biden might be compromised by the Ukrainians? The same president of the United States that's demanding that we tie Ukrainian funding with Israeli funding. The same president of the United States that refuses to give an accounting on the already $130 billion that has been sent to Ukraine. Those people, the Ukrainians that Joe Biden, remember when Joe Biden went over and, I got him fired. No, SOB. And, he's cursing and bragging about getting people fired. Because the company that his son worked for wanted the prosecutor fired, so they weren't investigated. That Joe Biden? Incurious. Media just couldn't give a rip. Follow the incuriosity of the media to find out who they're trying to protect. And in this case, it's pretty obvious. They're protecting Joe Biden. They're protecting this president. What I'm curious about is whether or not they can keep this shield up, considering his mental and physical infirmity, considering the depths of the corruption. At what point do the Democrats cut bait? Fish or cut bait, the old saying goes. Or do they? Is Joe Biden powerful enough within his own political party to overcome some of these issues moving into 2024? Because right now, it looks clear that the one person that Donald Trump is almost assured of dispatching of is Joe Biden. But then you have that pesky little issue of Kamala Harris being in the way. So we'll discuss it today. We'll give you all of the details on the latest on Joe Biden. We get so many of these stories coming at us fast and furious. I didn't even mention the 80,000 emails. We haven't talked about that yet because we're busy talking about Israel and the quote-unquote Palestinian people and Hamas and what is going on in the Middle East. I am more interested in what's going on here in Middle Tennessee and what's going on across the South and across the United States of America with regard to that conflict. And I genuinely ask this question. Why are people and we asked it yesterday. We talked a little about this yesterday. And since yesterday, there have been a number of other stories on it. Why are people in the United States of America tearing down flyers and posters regarding missing or kidnapped children in Israel? It does not make sense to me. I can understand, I suppose, what motivates people to be pro-Palestinian. I would vehemently argue against it. I would have a robust debate with you regarding who the good guys are and the bad guys are, but at least I can understand that. What I can't understand is what is so provocative about hanging up a poster of a kidnapped Israeli child, or citizen for that matter, and why so many Americans, I've seen video after video, all you have to do is go on social media and you can't avoid them, video after video of Americans who claim to want truth. Why do they feel a desire to tear down these posters when they see them? More broadly, my wife and I had this discussion a couple of nights ago. And she asked a heartfelt question that maybe many of you have thought to ask, and I have not really thought of it in this way. How is it that so many people in the United States of America are so anti-Semitic? The anti-Semitism that exists in this country is amazing to me. And I can't understand what it is. Like, what creates Jew hatred? I'm asking this question sincerely. I don't understand in 2023 what it is about the Jewish population in the United States of America that creates such anger and animosity towards specific religious faiths. And how amazing it is to me that any suggestion that a quote-unquote right-wing organization is anti-Jewish or anti-Semitic, that is news. That is the lead on the mainstream news. Right-wing organization, passes out anti-Jewish flyers. But now we see it all over the United States of America, and it's on college campuses. It's a part ingrained within the political left. And, mainstream media just kind of shrugs its shoulders. I mean, this level of hatred has to be taught, but I don't understand. I genuinely, and maybe it's my ignorance, and you can help me out with it, I genuinely don't understand what is the genesis of the hatred. Is it the belief that Jewish people control a lot of money? Is it just a fear or an anger against, quote, the other? Is it the Israeli-Palestinian situation that has existed for my entire lifetime? Is it the fact that the state of Israel exists at all? And by the creation of the state of Israel, there was a forcible relocation of certain Arabs or Palestinians in that region of the world? Tell me what it is. Whether you believe it or not, help me understand it. 1222, Supertalk 99.7 WTN. There's a ceasefire rally, quote-unquote, ceasefire rally in Nashville this weekend. We'll talk about that as well as we get to your calls. Marsha Blackburn coming up at 2 o'clock. Cameron Smith in his normal place in the 2 o'clock hour as well. Just getting episode 446 underway on the Libertarian Lunch on Supertalk 99.7 WTN.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things I like to do for investors is educate them, because the more educated I believe that you are as an investor, the more peace of mind you have, the less you worry, and the more successful you're likely to be as an investor. So here goes another education. If we look at a lot of these investment portfolios, like these target date funds out there or portfolios put together by big mutual fund companies, they'll often use something called a total market fund. And you think, wow, I own the whole market in one mutual fund. Matter of fact, there's a really popular video out there on YouTube that says you can get by with just a couple mutual funds and you can be totally diversified. Nothing could be further from the truth. What's going on here is this. One of the things we know as an investor is that you have small companies out there and you have large companies out there. You have growth companies and you have value companies. I taught this in a previous video. We expect more return from small companies than we do large because they have to pay more to use your money historically. Value companies have to pay more to use your money historically as well. Now, what happens with total market funds is they weight based on the size of the company. Well, that would mean that a bigger company would represent more of the portfolio. So graphically, it would look something like this. The fund would look like this. That there's a ton of money in really big companies and there's almost no money in really small companies in those portfolios. So it's not really diversified. Do they own them? Yeah, they own them, but they almost have no money in them. So when these do really well, you're not really getting the benefit from it. What we would be better served doing is investing in various areas of the market and holding different types of funds to be more balanced between these areas. That's what academic research shows us, is if we can hold these areas more separately, then we end up with a better risk-return experience. So this is one of the things that we teach people. We like for you to understand this, because the more you understand it, the less you're pulled astray from the investing industry that's typically all about selling you things. Yeah, total market fund, it sounds really good. Not necessarily so great in practice. Now, if you want to find out a little bit more and learn more about investing so that you're a more educated investor, why don't you take us up on a free 15-minute phone call? Go to paulwinkler.com. It's paulwinkler.com. You can set up one in any of our offices, our 10 offices around the Nashville area. There's one near you, most likely. Set that up. Come see us. We love to educate investors. I think you'll be happy you did.
Supertalk 99.7 WTN. Join us on Supertalk TV. Hello. I'm dressed in all black today, in mourning for the lack of trick-or-treaters last night. Supertalk TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. Hello there. Glad to have you with us on board. You can also join us on the F&M Bank chat line and chat at your leisure, and I'll try to respond to those as time allows. We only got like, I don't know, 12. It was a one vodka drink experience. Let's put it that way.
And that was just for the kids.
Oh, right, sure. Well, we gave out shots for the kids. Come on. Got to give them a little fireball, slide them into that. I would note that I posted this up on social medias. You can find it. I think I put it up on @MattMurphyShow on X. I think I put it up. I know I put it up on Facebook.
Formerly known as Twitter.
Formerly known as Twitter. The outfit that I wore yesterday, the Department of Corrections outfit, we augmented that with a mask and a machete for Halloween festivities. And I'm sitting at the edge of the driveway. I got my adult beverage there. We got the kiddies and their candy. The wife put a bunch of candy into cups. We were giving away Halloween cups. And as dusk was upon us, the kids start, not a lot of them, but we see them coming down the road. And it's a youngster in a Spider-Man outfit. And Erica says, take your mask off, take your mask off, take your mask off. And I'm like, why? And she says, you might scare him.
How old was the kid? About?
I don't know, 4?
Oh.
5, maybe 4? I don't know.
The kid's easily seen Friday the 13th.
Whatever. I mean, the kid's parents are there. Well, 5575 says, we had 0 trick-or-treaters. Now we get to eat all of the candy. All of the candy made an appearance at the radio station today for us because I have to get it out of the house. Otherwise, I'll eat it. But, yeah, so I'm in mourning for the lack of trick. I wanted a few more trick-or-treaters, wanted to scare them in my little the best part of that picture of me standing in front of the house with the machete is Munson looking out the window. If you look, you'll see.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, you see it. It's pretty creepy. And he looks like a ghost dog. Chris is in Hendersonville. First up on the Murphy Show. Hey, Chris, how are you?
Good. How are you doing today?
I'm well, man. Thanks for calling.
Man, I'm sorry to call in on something that seems so serious, but every time you kept saying incurious, I kept thinking of Infamous from the movie The Three Amigos, talking about El Guapo. I just can't get it out of my head now.
Is it, am I saying it wrong? Is it uncurious?
No, incurious is right. I can't get it out of my head. Now I'm seeing Joe Biden as El Guapo trying to take over the little village.
Well, see, and Chris, it's interesting the turn that this conversation has taken because I saw your name, Chris from Hendersonville, and it said Three Amigos on the phone, and I thought you were calling in to slam on Mandis and Johnny B and Ken Weaver and Chris Ann. So
well, I do generally slam on them in private, but I have a policy not to do it in public.
Well, I don't have that same policy, Chris.
Well, yeah, you're on the radio.
I'll have to, you know what I'll have to do? I'll have to go rewatch because I don't remember. What was the line?
Well, he's not just famous; he's infamous.
Infamous. That's right.
Yeah,
Not infamous.
Yeah.
Infamous.
yeah. Now, on the Jewish situation, have you had a chance to go back and look at the history of it?
I mean, I've studied I understand the religious nature of the struggle, and I understand. I don't pretend to be an expert's expert on the history of Jewish-Arab relations, but I think I know more than the average guy.
Well, yeah. I mean, even Lindbergh was an anti-Semite back prior to World War II. He was part of the Anti-Jewish League.
Well, Charles Lindbergh was a Nazi sympathizer. No question.
Well, yeah. I was just trying to be nice about it. Yeah, he absolutely was. Even prevented from serving in the military as a pilot because of his Nazi affiliations.
Yeah, I get that. I guess kind of the nature of my question is more in modern times with young Americans. Are they just stupid and they're parroting what older people say to them? Like, why would a 25-year-old let's use the actual situation. Why would a 21-year-old junior at Cornell University go on a social media platform and call for the death of all the Jews?
Well, you have to look at the way the media has been approaching it historically. They've always been on the side of the Palestinians, even when Yasser Arafat and you and I are of an age. So I'm 54 years old, so we can kind of have some of the same images in our head. But when Yasser Arafat was on television trying to negotiate terms with the Jewish state, they were sympathizing with him. They weren't terrorists back then. And then continuously since then, it has been, woe to the suffering of the Palestinians, and the only people that are doing that are the Jews. It's not, they don't realize that the Israeli state is filled with Jews and Christians and Muslims and Hindus and atheists and everything else. They just see what the media has been purporting for decades. And so they've soaked it up like a sponge. I'm an educator, and I have many students who see that idea of black and white. If it's bad for the Palestinians, then it must be somebody causing it directly and intentionally.
Well, and they can't possibly conceive that it's the Palestinian leadership that is creating a dynamic by which Palestinians get killed by Israelis because the Palestinian leadership feels that it bolsters their position. I guess, there's a lot of critical thinking going on about this issue. Maybe I have too much expectation that the younger generations engage in that level of critical thinking as opposed to just sloganeering. They walk down the street and they scream Free Palestine or whatever.
It's one of the things that I absolutely demand of my students is the utilization of logic and critical thinking, as you put it, to go back and look at the subject from every side. As a Christian, I felt it was my duty to read the Quran to be able to understand and talk to them on a sympathetic level, to Muslims on a sympathetic level. This generation and the generations after us just haven't taken that effort. They're lazy, and they're just not taking the effort to understand the opposition.
One of the things that I'll do on occasion on the radio show, and it freaks people out when I do it, we typically do it around April Fool's Day because you can't really pull off a good April Fool's Day joke anymore without the risk of being fired. But I will play what I call Bizarro Matt. And that is that you call and take any position on any issue you want, and I'll take the opposite position and argue with you. And one of the reasons I enjoy doing that, Chris, is because it hones my critical thinking skills.
Oh, yeah. My parents used to say that I could argue with a wall and have a good time, and that's the way it should be.
Hey, Chris, real quick, because I'm like 4 minutes late and I'm getting in trouble. What grade range are you talking about when you say you teach?
I'm graduate level.
Well, I'm glad you're out there. I'm glad that we have somebody like yourself. It gives me great confidence that sometimes we overstate the fact that we don't have good educators around in the United States of America insisting on critical thinking. Got to go. It's 12:34 on Super Talk. if you have an appointment at Tennessee Men's Clinic in Midtown today, you might see me right after the show. I'm stopping by to say hello to Evan and the rest of the crew over there at Tennessee Men's Clinic. They're good people, and they do great work for the men in our community. Let's talk about that. Now, often it is the focus of Tennessee Men's Clinic that they talk to you about, issues that many of us would consider private. I mean, these are kind of bedroom-type activities. But, gentlemen, let's get real, okay? Half of men in America will deal with something like that. And if I told you didn't have to, if I told you that there was an easy way to get to the bottom of why you might be dealing with that sort of thing, you would want to figure it out, right? You'd want to know some of those numbers. Well, T levels can affect men in a lot of different ways. Other things can affect your lifestyle in a lot of different ways. So if you're feeling low energy or no energy, whether it's in the bedroom or otherwise, then you need to contact the Tennessee Men's Clinic and allow them to assist you, gentlemen. It is all about your men's health, and this is men-specific health care for you. TennesseeMen'sClinic.com are 2 locations to serve you. One's in Midtown, the other's in Cool Springs. Give them a call and schedule an appointment today. 615-208-9090, 208-9090. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It's 12:39. We'll jump back on the phones. Asking the very sincere question, why do people in America have anger or hatred toward the Jewish people? I understand differences of opinion about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, the Israeli-Hamas war. I understand a feeling of concern about the fact that innocent people might be getting killed as a result of this. I'm of the position that a pro-ceasefire position is a pro-Palestinian position. It is a pro-Hamas position. But I could have a debate about that. What I don't understand is what can best be described as Jew hate. I just don't get it. Like, I can understand, I guess the easiest way to put this, when I grew up, I knew when I reached my teenage years, my grandfather was the finest man I ever knew, the finest man I ever will know. And my grandfather softened quite a bit over the years of his life in his 60s, 70s, and 80s. But when I was a kid, my grandfather was racist. He would use the N-word. He would always claim to you that he didn't mean it that way. I mean, not always, but occasionally he would, I know, he would claim that it wasn't race specific when he said it. And I remember a moment that, looking back on it now, when it happened, I didn't look at it as what I think it turned out to be. But I remember I was 14 years old, and I asked my grandfather to stop it. And looking back on it now, I'm proud of it. I did it because I was uncomfortable. And he, kind of sloughed it off and said he didn't mean anything by it. And he knows plenty of, there's plenty of different types of people that that it didn't mean anything about the color of their skin. And by the way, my grandfather was great friends with black people. One of his best friends, a guy by the name of Robert Kitchens, was a black guy. So it always baffled me. Looking back on it now as an adult, my grandfather grew up, and by the way, my grandfather's Cherokee Indian, so he had no reason to be racist except that he grew up in it. And it was what he knew. So I imagine that this has to have some genesis from upbringing, when 20-something-year-old people are going online and feel compelled to spew Jew hate. The only way I can say it.
I had an experience when I was really young, like 5 years old. I was with my grandmother, and she was in the car with her brother, and somebody cut him off in traffic, and he just started with the racial expletives just pouring out of his mouth. And she got really offended and screamed at him to pull the car over, yanked me out of the car, and is preparing to walk to a payphone, and starts just chastising him for using that language in front of her and me. And it wasn't until later that I thought about this. It was so odd to me that one person from that same household was completely fine with that mindset, and the other person was completely revolted by it. And they're from the same household.
Well, I get it. I mean, I understand it. And it was odd. I don't remember the exact language that I used but I remember that I was 14. And I asked my pa to stop it. And he kind of sloughed it off like whatever. But then I realized now, you know what he did? He stopped it. I mean, not altogether, but there was some of it. I mean, but not a lot of it in the later years in his life. And I think I would like to believe in the later years of his life, he recognized that that's just stereotyping the quote unquote other. And that is particularly a way. My grandfather grew up dirt poor in Dunbarton, South Carolina, where they got relocated because of the Savannah River plant. And 90% of the people that got relocated were black. 10% were, quote, white. My grandfather was considered Caucasian, even though he was Cherokee Indian. So point being is that he grew up and he was surrounded by black people and lived and worked amongst them, yet he carried that racism with him. Once again, I have an understanding of that. I don't have an understanding of why a 21-year-old would spew the type of anger and hatred and anti-Semitism that we saw at Cornell University, except that they think they can get away with it, or it makes them feel somehow good or superior in some fashion.
Some kind of social clout with it?
I guess. I don't get it. Now, many of you are suggesting that it is because Jews are, quote unquote, anti-Christ, or they don't believe in Jesus Christ. I don't think that's what it is at all. Most of these kids on college campuses wouldn't know religion if it hit them in the head like a frying pan. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. What say you? Larry's in Clarksville calling us. Hey, Larry, thanks for the call. Thanks for the hold. How are you, sir?
Hey, Matt. I'm hanging in there, but I'm trying to duct tape my head, keep it from exploding. You know, my dad's best friend while he worked at Nabisco was black. He was one of the finest men I ever knew. but Dad would always use the N word. Well, I remember when I was 6.5 years old, and I'm just a little bit older than you. Well, a little bit, you know. There was a family that had a car wreck in front of our house, and the gentleman walked up, and my German Shepherd and I were sitting on my back porch, and he said, "Well, will your dog bite?" And I said, "Well, but he might bite an N-word." We did not have air conditioning. Mom was in the kitchen doing the dishes. I cannot tell you how fast that she brought my rear end into the house and whipped me with a switch. But my question to you is, Matt, well, one more quick comment. The younger kids, yeah, they're going to have this. That's because they've been taught this all through public education. But my question to you is, Matt, one of my best friends who used to be extremely liberal, and we used to have discussions, and then he became a conservative, and now he is anti-Semitism. And I don't know how, I don't understand that. How do I, tell him, dude, you're just being a fool?
I don't, I like to joke, and it's a great call, Larry, and thank you for making it. You always make great calls. I like to joke that I don't belong to any club that would have me as a member. It's an old Groucho Marx joke, but it's true. I mean, I don't belong to a club anything. I am fiercely independent. Fiercely independent. I don't know what it is about me mentally that pushes me in that direction, but it does. So groupthink mentality is foreign to me. Now, the Georgia Bulldog, that's a different subject. Somebody just brought that's different. That's different. Thank you. Georgia, glory, glory to Georgia. Did you see they disrespected us? Disrespect! The College Football Playoff Committee put us at number 2. Number 2. We'll show you number 2. We're going to use that as delicious hate fuel against the Missouri Tigers over the weekend.
As little as I know about football, I will never understand that college ranking system.
Well, it's better than it used to be. I mean, it used to be a bunch of computers. Now it's a bunch of knuckleheads sitting in a room figuring it out for themselves. But whatever. I digress. Some are saying that it is spiritual in nature. I get that. But then I get this. And look, I'm not knocking this super text. I asked for this. But this is what I get. And maybe this is the answer. Jews want to kill and have historically killed Christians. They had Christ killed and went from there. Jews control many evil narratives in the world. They own many of the banks. They were the first bankers. This equals control. People don't realize that Jews at this point are no better than Islamists. I responded to 5201 by saying, how are Jews hurting you? Serious question, when was the last time Jews killed Christians en masse? 5201 responded, they aren't hurting me and I don't hate them. I want to see them saved, which is what Romans 11 says will happen. But for now, they hate Christians. I don't think Jews don't hate Christians, do they? But for now, they hate Christians, he writes, or she writes. I just happen to know how they operate, and I'm not going to whitewash it because anti-Semitism is a golden calf of the world. So, how they operate. This is what I don't get. And I'm not trying to slam on you, 5201. I asked the question, and you're answering the question. You're offering your opinion, and that's all well and good. But what do they get? The Jew newsletter that tells them how to act around other people and how to operate, that they're all in it together? I don't think they're all in it together, man. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I doubt it. 615-737-9986. Brett and Lindsay and David will get to you and your call as well, as this has struck a nerve. And I asked the sincere question. We see this story out of Cornell University. This is my inspiration, where federal authorities have arrested a Cornell University student, a 21-year-old junior student by the name of Patrick Day, or Dye, D-A-I, who's from Pittsford, New York, was arrested on federal criminal charges, charging him with posing threats to kill or injure other people using interstate communications. The complaint alleges that he posted messages on the Cornell section of an online discussion site which called for the death of Jewish people and called to carry out a mass shooting at a building on Cornell University where Jewish people congregated. I do not understand this level of hate by younger generations of Americans. 1252, Super Talk 99.7, WTN. Old Dr. G started the company, the Dr. Gill Center, years ago, over 30 years ago now, actually. And Dr. Gill's spirit is in the building, and Dr. Wendy, Dr. V, Dr. Dominic, the team of chiropractic physicians that he has put together in that building is unmatched in Middle Tennessee. They were the originators of spinal decompression therapy in Middle Tennessee. That means something. That means they were on the cutting edge of that conversation, the cutting edge of that therapy, and they want to help you avoid the cut. Avoid the cut. That would be the surgery, by getting with the Dr. Gill Center for back, neck, and chronic pain relief. If you have hip pain or elbow pain or knee pain, call them today and say a couple of words. Say, Matt Murphy told me to say pain relief. That's what you say. Matt Murphy told me to say pain relief. And when you do, you'll get a discount on your initial visit to the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief. 615-882-4838. 615-882-4838 is the number. Worth the drive anywhere within the sound of my voice. I encourage you to get pain-free without the pills and without the surgery with the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief in Franklin. Oh, I just got this great text. By the way, it's the Murphy Show, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Matt Murphy. My name is not Gail, although I just got a great text. Hi, Gail. Hey, look up area code 623. Okay. Tell me where 623 comes from. Hi, Gail. We love your property at 1610 36th Avenue North. Wanted to know if you were the person to talk about presenting a proposal for it. Please reply stop to stop receiving our message. So I'm thinking I should
Phoenix.
I'm thinking I should probably go ahead and sell this property. See if they cut me a check, a la Joe Biden.
Yeah, just be a nice guy and tell them they can have it for free.
It's yours. Squat away, folks. Squat away. All right, lots of calls coming in about this conversation, and we'll continue it in just a moment right after the news.
From ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. After weeks of waiting, the Rafah Gate opened to allow hundreds of foreign nationals, including 5 American aid workers, to cross from Gaza into Egypt. ABC's Inez de la Quatara is in Jerusalem.
We did get confirmation that 335 foreign nationals were allowed to leave, and humanitarian aid also getting in. So an additional 51 aid trucks were allowed to get into Gaza today as the U.S. continues to put pressure on Israel to allow for more humanitarian aid to get in.
In North Gaza, Israeli forces pushing further into the densely populated areas. IDF says 15 soldiers have died in the line of duty. Hamas claims dozens of civilians have died in an Israeli airstrike at the Jabalia refugee camp. President Biden will be in Minnesota this afternoon, part of his administration's efforts to invest in rural America. The White House pushing back on claims that the trip comes after Minnesota Congressman Dean Phillips announced he's a candidate for the Democratic primary.
Asked if the president's trip is connected to Phillips' announcement, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre on Tuesday demurred and would not engage on politics. Jean-Pierre said the president is going to tout his economic agenda and hear from people in a rural community. Karen Travers, ABC News, Washington.
The Federal Reserve Board wrapping up its policy meeting and has announced it's leaving rates unchanged for now. It's the second straight time. ABC's Elizabeth Schulze says the Fed trying to slow inflation and stabilize the economy.
It's already hiked rates 11 times in the past year and a half, making it a lot more expensive to borrow money. During that time, mortgage rates have more than doubled to a 23-year high of around 8%. And the average credit card interest rate is now at a record high, nearly 21%.
In New York City, Donald Trump Jr. set to testify this afternoon in the civil fraud trial involving the Trump Organization. Former President Trump, his sons, and executives accused of inflating property values to obtain favorable loans. You're listening to ABC News.
Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy. Let's talk about weight loss. It might seem an odd time of year to discuss, PhD weight loss? Well, because the holidays are here, right? Halloween was yesterday, and that's a lot of candy. And before you know it, Thanksgiving's here, and that's a lot of brown food. And before you know that, there's holiday parties, there's Christmas gatherings. All of these things can take us off our game during the holiday season. I want you to get in front of that. What if I told you that between now and Thanksgiving, that you could lose weight? You could get in front of and we get that holidays happen, and we understand that. Well, with PhD weight loss, I've lost over 36 pounds. I know that you can lose weight because I've watched it happen with me. And the program is so easy to follow. The people are so supportive. Rachel, my nutritionist, maybe Rachel will be your nutritionist as well. She has been incredibly supportive when you have little slip-ups when life happens, and she helps you navigate before the slip-ups occur. Average women lose between 2 and 3 pounds a week. Average men lose between 3 and 5 pounds a week. And don't forget about that PhD guarantee, that they'll get you on a plan and they'll get you within 5 pounds of your target weight by the end of your program. And they'll continue to coach you for free until you get there if you don't get there. But they know you'll get there if you follow the plan. Go to myphdweightloss.com and get in front of the holidays. Do this. myphdweightloss.com. Here we go. It's 1:05. Good afternoon and welcome back. The Matt Murphy Show continues this Wednesday edition. It is the first day of November. It is a cool, crisp, sunny day in the Music City. I hope it's gorgeous wherever you might be listening. If you're online, you could be anywhere. Literally anywhere around the world. You can find us on Super Talk. Take us wherever you go. Download the app or go to your internet streaming source of your choice and find us by typing in Supertalk 99.7 WTN. You can also find us on Supertalk TV. That's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. We are there. Hello. Broadcasting loud and proud. You can communicate via the F&M Bank chat line in that regard, or you can give us a call at 615-737-9986. Began an interesting discussion in the first hour. If you're just joining us and missed Libertarian Lunch, so there is this story. They are all over America. Stories about anti-Semitism. Christopher Wray, for what it's worth, Christopher Wray is the director of the FBI, and he says anti-Semitism has never been greater in the United States of America. And these aren't right-wing zealots presenting anti-Semitism. These are anti-Semitics on college campuses, college professors and the like. Federal authorities arrested a Cornell University student. This is just as an example. This is probably one of the more egregious examples. Patrick Dye, I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly, D-A-I, 21 years of age, a junior student at Cornell who is originally from Pittsford, New York, was arrested on a federal criminal complaint charging him with posting threats to kill or injure others using interstate communications. The complaint against Day, or Die, I'm going to say Day, D-A-I. The complaint against Day alleges he posted threatening messages to the Cornell section of an online discussion site, which included calling for the death of Jewish people, carrying out a mass shooting at the 104 West building, which is a Cornell University dining hall that centers on or caters to predominantly kosher diets, and is located next to the Cornell Jewish Center. In another post, Day allegedly threatened to, quote, slit the throat of any Jewish males that he saw on campus, threatened to rape any Jewish females, and to behead Jewish babies. I could go on, but I don't want to. Day faces a maximum term of 5 years in prison, $250,000 fine. This is one of the more egregious examples of anti-Semitism that we've seen in the United States of America, but it's just one of thousands, one of tens of thousands. And it's important that we note that this type of activity is going on. At the same time, it is even the softer anti-Semitism that befuddles me. I mentioned in the first hour, I don't understand what would compel someone, even if you have a different position on the issue of Israel and Hamas and the Palestinians, even if you find yourself steadfastly agreeing that the Palestinian state is an occupied, I mean, you and I could have a debate about that if that's what you really believe. But what I don't understand is what motivates people to tear down flyers. So why are so many Americans who claim to stand for freedom, why do they feel an overwhelming desire to tear down posters when they see them? There are these posters that have popped up of Israeli citizens who are missing, and they're popping up in the United States of America to draw attention to the fact that we currently have hostages, American and otherwise, in Gaza right now. And you have Americans all over college campuses and all over our city streets actively tearing these posters down, these flyers down. Now, once again, I'm not suggesting that everyone has to agree in lockstep on the issue of Israeli-Palestinian relations, but why would you not just walk on by? It's the same confusion that I have with atheists who try to shut down prayer, public prayer. Like if you're an atheist and you're at a football game and people pray why does that bother you? Why does it annoy you to the point that it's not just enough that you don't pray? It's not enough that, I get if you're an atheist standing in a football game or at a football game and just looking around going, silly Christians, ha, ha, ha. I mean, I guess I get that. You'll burn in hell, but I get that. What I don't understand is taking it to the next level and deciding you're going to shut it down for everybody. So I can understand, I suppose, as wrong as I think you might be, using this analogy, I can understand why you might feel the way that you do regarding the Palestinians and the Israelis, why you might feel the way you do when you see these posters, but why wouldn't you just slough it off and walk on by? No, you have to tear them down. What level of anger and hatred is in your heart that you would do that? Maybe you guys understand it better than me. A lot of you want to speak to it. 615-737-9986. I want to get to who's been holding. Has Brett been holding the longest? Line one. Is that right? Okay. Brett, thank you for your call. I appreciate you out of Columbia.
Hey,
how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you.
Man, we miss you in Birmingham.
Well, I appreciate that.
One of the things I think that we lose sight of is there is absolute evil in the world. And we try to use rationale to deal with irrational people. And you can't do that. We try to use natural solutions to a spiritual problem. And I think that until we come to terms with that, we're going to remain to the fact that we don't understand it. If that makes any sense.
No, it does. It does. It's actually an excellent point. Similar in nature to what I say regarding breaking down a mass shooting. We try to make sense of the senseless, and it's an exercise in futility, obviously, because you can't. And I guess maybe this is part of that, that it is so deeply spiritual in nature that we are not going to necessarily understand. I just think so much of this, especially from the younger generation, comes from a place of ignorance. And there was a time where that ignorance had a little bit of naivete involved to it. Now it just has a lot of anger, and it just seems more yelly than it used to be. You know what I mean?
Well, it absolutely is. But again, I think that it goes back to the fact that you've got professors and educators that are acting out of a heart that is evil. And, these things have happened incrementally. And we used to say that a lot. It happened 20 years ago all at one time. But we have allowed it to slip into our society, And as we have, we've become more used to it. And because of that, there are a sector of people that accept it more readily than we would have before.
No, it's a well articulated point that you're making, and it helps me that you're seeing it the way that you do. Thank you, Brett, for the call, and thank you for the kind words. I miss a lot of my friends out in Birmingham as well. Chip is next in Lexington, Tennessee. Hey, Chip, how are you?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. What's on your mind?
Well, the N-word deal, when I was in school in 1980, the Webster's dictionary definition was someone who was lazy or a thief. And they've changed the definition from when we were in elementary school, somewhere in the 2000s, to mean a person of color. You with me?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm listening.
And no one should let a word define them. An ignorant person shouldn't make someone else feel bad about themselves with a word. They shouldn't let that affect them. And on the Jew situation, the Jews call Christians goyim, and what they believe that we are here to serve them. We are basically their slaves because they believe that they are God's chosen people. You still with me?
I'm here. I'm listening.
And that may be where some of this violence is coming from. Throughout history, the Jewish people have been run off from country to country because they will move into a country, loan out money, and charge outrageous amounts of interest. So they go in and take all the money out of a country, and then that country pushes them out because they have robbed them. And all of this is historical facts. You can look this up.
So do you believe that's happening in America?
Man, the Jews hate Christians and the Muslims hate Christians.
What do you know any Jews?
I don't.
Do you know any Jews?
Yes, I know Jews.
And do they hate you? Are you Christian?
I am Christian.
Do they hate you?
The ones that are my friends do not, but now their leaders call us goyim.
See, I don't know. I don't know of any Jewish congregation that would suggest that they hate the Christian people. I don't know.
The Jews are the ones who had Jesus crucified. It was the Jews.
Yeah, no, I understand religiously that the Jews worked together with the Romans and allowed Jesus to be. I mean, they had the opportunity to prevent Jesus' crucifixion, which, by the way, would have prevented our salvation. Right?
Yes, it would have prevented. I'm happy that they did it because
in that
that
way,
gave us salvation.
the Jews were necessary as the chosen people ordained by God to act in that role so as to secure our salvation. I mean, if we want to talk about religious things like this, I don't pretend to be a theologian, but that's my understanding of it.
Yeah,
so
I'm not neither.
So,
but a lot of the Jews believe Christians are beneath them. They believe the Christians were put here.
I mean,
to be
once again, what Jews are you talking about? Who are you talking about?
The Orthodox Jews.
Who are you talking about? Name me one person that believes that. One specific person that believes it.
What's his name? I think it's Rabbi Finkelstein. Calls us goyim openly.
So Rabbi,
look up Rabbi Finkelstein.
Rabbi Finkelstein.
Yes.
Is it? Are you sure it's Finkelstein and not Finkelstein?
It may be Finkelstein.
I'm just joking. That was a joke.
But the pronunciation, I'm sure if you spell it close,
no, I got it. Where is Rabbi Finkelstein from? Do you know?
He is from, I believe he's in New York.
Okay. So Rabbi Finkelstein in New York believes that the Jews are better than the Christians.
Yes.
Okay.
That we are put here to serve the Jews.
I want to clean something up at the beginning of the call. I don't know what you read in 1980.
Mm-hmm.
How old were you in 1980?
I was 9.
Mm-hmm. But you remember that the N-word was specifically defined in a certain way in the dictionary in 1980.
Yes, sir.
In 1980, did you ever call a white kid the N-word?
I never called. Yeah, I did call a white kid the N-word.
I don't believe you. Thank you. Chip, that could be a failure of mine. I'm not saying you're a bad guy or a bad person, but I do not believe that a white boy in 1980 ever called other white people the N-word. I've heard it too many times, and I don't buy it. That is whitewashing history. The N-word was used as a pejorative for years against black people. And I'm not a fan of whitewashing the language in the way that we have. But Chip, love you. Thank you for calling. Appreciate the call. I don't believe you. 120 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN 124. A tremendous response on the super text line regarding our conversation. It's a deep one. By the way, I looked up Rabbi Finkelstein. The one that I could find was Louis Finkelstein, who was born in 1895 and died in 1991. He was a Talmud scholar and an expert in Jewish law. He was in New York. Maybe that's the one that he's talking about. I expected there were other Finkelsteins or Finkelsteins. So just to let you know, I'm doing my homework during the breaks. Doing my homework. Yesterday you talked about worthless words. However, the bigoted caller, Chip, is partially correct. The original meaning, the word, much like the Confederate flag, the word in and of itself, whatever its etymology is, it was long ago co-opted to degrade segments of our society. And it has a particular, I had no idea we'd be debating this today, but here we are. Not really debating it, just discussing it. My central focus was to try to honestly and earnestly try to figure out where the genesis of the hatred in America comes from regarding the Jewish population. In America. And I hear, well, they control the banks, they control the media. I just don't see that. They don't control me. Well, yeah, they do, Murphy. You just don't know. Right? I don't get it. And perhaps it's because I don't look at people in blocks. I look at every single person as an individual. I'm not saying I'm doing it better or differently. I'm just trying to understand what I'm missing in all of this. Pat is in Clarksville. Pat, thank you for the call. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine, Matt. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good. Well, I've been thinking a lot about this whole protest business over the last few weeks, and it does bother me very much. I think I'll just throw out a couple of words that I think are involved in this. I'm old, okay? I'm 70, but when I did something that wasn't acceptable, which wasn't often, I might say. We had consequences, and we need to bring back consequences for bad actions. But there's peer pressure out there, follow the crowd. It takes a lot more courage to stand alone, and I don't see a lot of brave people. You have certain students who are just natural leaders, and that can be done for good or for bad, and they're the ones that everybody will listen to and follow. So then you get a group together and you start getting the mob mentality. And then, of course, things go crazy. The other thing, I think there's a lot of people out there, students, whatever, they are looking for attention. I don't, whether it's good or bad, I think they want attention. And this is one way to do it. I also don't think many of them have read enough to understand much about the Jews. And if people are upset because the Jews might have a majority of the entertainment business and banks, well, so what? Maybe they worked for it. Are you envious? I think there's a little envy out there. If you don't like something, change it, for crying out loud. But don't change it for the worse. And I think certain individuals out there, you got to admit it, there's a few young folks in this country who have a little bit of a psychopathic tendency, as we see the shootings and everything. And here's an opportunity for those people to be heard and to make comments like they're making, like slit the throat and what have you. They're having a little freedom with their psychological issues, let's say.
And it's a part of what, I think it's also a broader discussion about how some people feel free through their perception of anonymity on social media platforms to say the most vile things that they think in their minds.
Absolutely. They're so brave when they don't have to show their face or their real name. Yeah, everybody can do that. It's nuts.
It's a great conversation point, Pat. Thank you for making it. Thank you for calling. I really do appreciate you. I'm trying to get to as many as I possibly can. I also don't want anyone to think I stopped reading the text from 2565, but I don't want anyone to think that I don't want to mischaracterize that text. Later on in the text, 2565 went on to say that the etymology of the word, the N-words, somehow we got into that conversation, may have its genesis in other places, but it was long ago co-opted. We were actually agreeing, 2565 and I were agreeing. I stopped reading the text because I have zero interest in debating the N-word. I have zero interest in discussing it. Zero. Yes, I understand the hypocrisy within the black community, within some aspects of the black community, but I don't see the value in the discussion. I mean, I'm willing to have it because I see value in you, but I don't know where it gets us. And I don't know how it furthers the conversation regarding the hatred and the anti-Semitism that we see in America nowadays either. June is in Manchester. Hey, June, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Just great. Thank you for calling in.
So, a little bit of context. I'm 52. I grew up in Detroit, Michigan. You had a previous caller that you asked him, can a white person tell another white person call him the N-word? It does happen. It did happen. Okay? It still happens. It's a context thing. You know, you can say, hey, my N-word, how you doing?
Well, yeah, Morgan, I mean, I think an obvious example of how this occurs, I'm not suggesting that it doesn't occur. What I'm suggesting is that it was not, I mean, it did not regularly occur, I don't believe, in 1980. But, I mean, Morgan Wallen is a good example. Yeah. Morgan Wallen did it, and, you know, the cancel culture in America tried to cancel him as a result, and thankfully he was able to overcome that. Yeah. So, I give
my point on it.
Well, I'm glad you did, June. Thank you for the call. I appreciate you. 131 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Don't forget, at 2:05 this afternoon, we'll speak with Senator Marsha Blackburn. If you have any questions for Senator Blackburn, give us hit us up on the Super Text line. And Cameron Smith will be in to talk about the latest in the Israeli-Hamas conflict and the latest from Washington, D.C. It's all upcoming on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, friends, Matt Murphy. Defend Systems is a life safety and security consultation firm specializing in physical security consultation and active violence mitigation training. That is a fancy way of saying that they help you understand the necessary steps to be safer in your workplace, safer in your school, and safer in your church. Brink Fiddler and his team of experts have been providing that type of training for, years now. Brink had years of experience in the Metro Nashville Police Department and now provides custom protection solutions that are unique to your particular location and or your particular security issue. Toward that end, they've trained over 30 Middle Tennessee schools. And if your child has not yet received that training, or if you're a teacher and you've not yet received that training, find out more about how you can receive said training at defendsystems.com. That's defendsystems.com. If you work actively around other people, and you are a decision maker in that workplace, you owe it to your staff, you owe it to your employees to customize training for your facility to make sure that you do not become a statistic. Now, odds are low that any of this will ever happen to you, but they're not zero. That is why hope is not a plan. I say that often. It's not. Let's get trained with Defend Systems. DefendSystems.com or 615-236-6484. 236-6484.
We really are passionate about our state. It's so beautiful, and we just want people and all Tennesseans to help us keep it that way. We really want to make sure that, our beauty, and from, west to east to even middle Tennessee, we want to make sure it's nice and clean for everyone to enjoy. I like to get people to volunteer and to get out there and keep our world clean, man. Litter's disgusting. No one likes it.
That's right. Yeah, if you ask my wife, I've always said, keep Tennessee beautiful. That's kind of been, I think I found a T-shirt or something a long time ago.
It's that marketing.
Yeah.
Really good job.
It's like,
yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no sense in throwing your trash out the window or when you're hunting or fishing, leaving the trash there on the bank or whatever. It's not worth it.
Currently, there are 88 million pieces of litter on Tennessee roadways at any given time in this state.
Wow.
And TDOT currently spends $23 million on picking up the litter, educating about the litter.
The Nobody Trashes Tennessee campaign, there's some great videos out there. And I was watching the litter lessons and the show and get to know the Red Plastic Cup. Tell us a bit about the campaign and some of those characters. That's pretty neat.
So Red Plastic Cup, he thinks he's a movie star.
Uh-huh.
He thinks, he's just the greatest thing ever. So he started off with a talk show, and then he got a movie. And in our movie, he got, more characters, and we had experts, water quality expert was Sal, the smallmouth bass.
Yeah.
And his bodyguard is Trash Watch. And if, we can go into Trash Watch a little bit too, but love Trash Watch.
I'm sorry. It's rude to laugh right as we come back from a break, but I just read something that made me guffaw. 136 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. My name is Matt Murphy, and I'm proud to be able to speak with you from noon until 3 on a daily basis. Tell a friend or a neighbor about the Matt Murphy Show. Would you do me that favor? I appreciate it. 615-737-9986. The thing that made me laugh, without comment, Bell, I'm going to read this to you, and I'm interested in your thoughts on this. You ready? Go. Defeated mayoral candidate Gabrielle Hansen refusing to accept her landslide loss in Franklin's city election, is now partnering with discredited election deniers in Arizona and claims that the election was rigged. That's pretty good, rigging. I mean, if she actually won and they didn't just, beat her 55 to 45%, they went ahead to beat her 80 to 20? This woman, I'm telling you, I've been telling you for
It's
months.
starting to get a little bit sad.
No, it is sad. And I've been telling you, I didn't speak a lot about this mayor's race. One, because I didn't think she had a chance in Hades of winning it. And two, this woman is crazy. And we identified it way back when she was on my radio show and claimed that she had a premonition about the Covenant School and knew exactly what happened 30 minutes afterwards, and then refused to tell us who told her.
But it's funny she didn't have a premonition about the election results.
Hansen, who was defeated by incumbent Mayor Ken Moore by a 4-1 margin following a scandal-filled campaign, recorded a podcast over the weekend with a couple of people that I've never heard of. He said that, so this guy that she was talking to, a fellow by the name of Mark Fincham, the Arizona Secretary of State candidate who was defeated, latched on to multiple bogus claims by Hansen to claim fraud, saying he would support an effort by the Franklin alderman to challenge the outcome of the election. Elections belong to the people. They don't belong to some government bureaucracy, Fincham told Hansen. What you're describing, madam, is not an election. It's a selection that was preset before anybody ever walked into that election booth.
You know who put it together?
Who's that?
Rabbi Finkelstein.
Rabbi Finkelstein.
This is his fault.
Despite the fact that, according to my research, he died in 1991, he set all of this in motion. He set all of this in motion. So, so Hansen is steadfast in her belief that the election was stolen from her. That's a level of crazy that you don't get very often, even in politics. David is in Hendersonville next up. Hey, David, thank you for your call. Good afternoon, sir.
Hey, buddy, how you doing?
I'm doing well, David.
Good. Thank you for taking my call.
Of course, man.
The guy, Chip, I believe he's a little shy on a few. He's big. He's just trying to hide it, but that comes down to it. That's what it is. As far as the young people, I think there's different reasons, and the first one I'm gonna blame on the parents. Parents should have taught them better than that. And then I'm going to go on and say you've got your leaders and your followers. Ones that are out there doing it, I believe they're followers. They're sheep. And they want to be a part of something. So they just go with the flow. Not only that, they do not want to go the other way and then be considered by the extremists as being on the other side. You know, if they would take and read their Bible, they would see they're on the wrong side. As far as Chip said that the Jews believed that they were the chosen ones and from God. That's exactly what they were. It's in the Bible. Read it.
Yeah, and you know, David, I thought to bring that up because that is my theological understanding as well. I remember that from my Sunday school classes and the study that I've done from a religious perspective. But I hesitate. I am not equipped like some to be able to get into those types of theological discussions. And so I hesitate to dip it in there because I know what happens when I do, and there's a lot of different opinions. But I don't know that there are a lot of opinions regarding the Jews being the chosen people, considering that the Jews are the chosen people. I don't
Right.
I mean, it's kind of right there. I mean, why wouldn't they believe that when God himself stated as much in the Holy Bible? I don't know.
Yeah.
But here's what I would say.
I don't know.
Go ahead.
I don't know of any Jew that is against a Christian. Yes, it was the Jewish people, and I won't go as far as saying the Jewish people that crucified Christ. It was the leaders of the Jewish community that got Christ crucified because they was scared of him.
You know,
they didn't believe that he was the Messiah.
Well, right, and I understand. You know, David, what to bring this back to 2023, and for those just tuning in, and thank you, David, for the call. The genesis of the discussion was simple. I'm seeing an incredible amount of anti-Semitism, just blatant, open anti-Semitism online and on college campuses and in big cities and little cities alike. We have something going on this weekend in Nashville. A Stand Up for Palestine Ceasefire Now rally happening this Saturday from 1 until 2:30 at Centennial Park. Desiring to demand ceasefire now. Well, I'm on record as saying pro-ceasefire is pro-Hamas. Pro-ceasefire is pro-Hamas. It's what they want. I find myself agreeing with none other than Hillary Clinton on this front. So we're diving a little deeper into what causes this abject hatred and anti-Semitism. And we had a previous caller and a couple of them have done this. And once again, I'm not here to chide you. I'm here to engage in a discussion that hopefully will forward a conversation that needs to happen. But anytime, whatever we're talking about, whether we're talking about the Jewish people or white people or Cherokee Indians or any group of individuals, if you start your sentence with all blank believe blank, then I have a problem with you. Does that make sense? When you tell me all Jews hate Christians, I have a problem with that because it's not true. And what I'm trying to get into is why you believe that. And with the particular caller that I'm referencing, Chip, he said, "Oh, well, yeah, I know a couple Jewish people. They don't hate me. The ones I know don't hate me." Well, then why are you saying that? Well, because of Rabbi Finkelstein. For those who weren't listening, I challenged Chip and I said, what Jews are you? Name me one Jew that hates Christians. And the Jew he came up with was someone by the name of Rabbi Finkelstein or Finkelstein. Is it Stein or Stein? I'm going to go with Stein. There is a dangerous precedent being set that we overgeneralize, we mischaracterize, and that creates the dynamic of anti-Semitism. I'm not Jewish. I am fiercely independent when it comes to my thinking about individuals. I abide by the King Charter that you judge individuals by the manner in which they act and treat others and the character that they present publicly and privately. And it is a dangerous stereotyping of the Jewish people to suggest that they all hate. I mean, it's ridiculous. And that is without delving into the historically religious nature of the relationship between the Jewish and the Christian people. Pam is next in Nashville. Pam, thank you for your call. I'm glad you waited. How are you?
I'm fine. I think you just made a point that I was going to make. You generalize a group or, a community as they believe this, and you don't know, you've not interviewed every Jewish person or every Native American to survey to see how they feel. You made exactly the point I was going to make, is that when you overgeneralize, then you perpetuate that, then that is the basis. You're exactly right. It's the basis of hate. And hate only perpetuates hate, right? So Chip's phone call irritated me a little bit. I mean, as a Jew, it's something that we face all the time, and I like the fact. I really appreciate that he said what it was that he has Jewish friends, and they don't hate him. But yet, in the previous statement, he said that we're out to control. Well, why are you friends with Jews that you think is going to control you?
Pam,
right?
you know what? Let me interject. That's a really good observation that I missed. So he has Jewish friends, and they're okay. But, generally speaking, the Jews are out to control you, and they hate Christians. So how does Chip know that his Jewish friends aren't controlling him, and he just doesn't know it?
Why are you friends with people that
right.
you think that you're going to, right? So I think that, again, this type of rhetoric, and then of course he's hoping to get more people on his side, and then we've got a reason to hate. And I mean, and as far as on the college campuses, I mean, the basis of the Holocaust, where it happened, was with young people, right? And it started with young people. And then before we knew it, we're here and 6 million are dead, probably more. Generations lost. We've never gotten back to how many, numbers of us prior to that. And now it's even more so with 1,400 plus probably more members of my family over in Israel, of my brothers and sisters. And so people, again, that overgeneralization, let me get you onto my side and see we've got a reason to hate and we've got a reason to don the pitchforks and go after X group. Because
I would have, but I argued for Pam for a while, particularly during the Trump administration, that those individuals claiming that there was this rampant anti-Semitism in America were overblowing it. And the reason I argued it is because they would point to quote-unquote right-wing extremism or right-wing hate groups. And I would never have suggested that they didn't exist, but my thing was always that you could fill the number of these types of people in America like in Nissan Stadium. And comparatively speaking, with 335 million people in the country, that is just a minuscule number. I'm here to tell you I was wrong. I cannot believe the number of leftist anti-Semites that exist in the United States of America. It is unbelievable to me how they have exposed themselves in less than a month.
To me, it's not a left-right issue. It's about a human issue.
Yes.
And it's been there, but now they've now put faces to this. This has been going on. All of this has been going on, but now it's more out in the open, right?
But what amazes me, Pam, is that there are people. You identified yourself as Jewish. I would be willing to bet you dollars to donuts if you and I met on the street. I would never, in my mind, think, "Oh, Pam's Jewish." I mean, it would just never occur to me. No. And what fascinates me is that there are people in their lives, apparently, that when they interact with other people, they're like, "Oh, I wonder if they're." I mean, who thinks that way?
No, yeah. Well, again, there are people that that. Okay, you've heard the old adage, when a person commits adultery, they will accuse their spouse of adultery, of the same act, and so people accuse, oh well, this set of people is out to control. Well, I would argue, no, I think you're telling on yourself. You're out to control. You're out to try to feel whatever way it is. And in the way it is, it's a sad commentary on the state of the heart and the soul. And, I'm not out to harm anybody. Matter of fact, I'm in a profession that tries to help heal. Mm-hmm. And that's our goal in life is to kill Malam, is to heal the world. And so how can we heal the world if we're doing what Chip said we're doing?
Well, Pam,
and again, I found it very interesting that he mentioned some of these things. But anyway, thank you very much, and thank you for allowing me these few minutes.
Absolutely, I very much appreciate the call. I don't. Are there people that go around trying to figure out if other people are Jewish? I mean, I guess that's kind of the genesis of my fascination with this subject. That like, I'll give you an example, and this is, say that I'm oblivious, that's fine. I'm willing to accept it. Like when John Fetterman came out and he was really, really pro-Israel in some of the statements that he made on social media, and I'm sure there are people writing it for him or whatever. I was like, wow, that's pretty out there. John Fetterman is really making a strong stand. And someone goes, well, he's Jewish. And as God is my witness, I'm like, oh yeah, well, I didn't think about that. Well, okay. I mean, I don't like look at a guy's last name and go, well, that's Jewish. He's a Jew. I mean, who thinks like that?
Well, you got to remember, the most of the people that do that are Jewish mothers trying to find a husband for their Jewish daughters.
See, at 2 hours, I work toward a solution, and you just destroy it in 9 words. We'll be back in a moment. USS is United Structural Systems. That's what that stands for. Let me tell you what they stand for. They stand for solving the problem that you have with your foundation or with your waterproofing system, and that's all they do, right? They're not here to upsell you on anything. Why would they do that? They understand that you don't want to spend your money in structural repair. You'd much rather, buy a car or go on a vacation, but you know that you have to do it because your house is the biggest one-time investment that most of us are going to make in our lives. And so it is important that we understand how important the foundation and waterproofing is to that investment. I know you do, and some of you, maybe you're just wanting to forget about it, wanting to pretend that moldy, mildewy smell doesn't exist, or God forbid, the water in your basement or crawl space doesn't exist, or the cracks don't exist, but they do. What are you going to do about it? Call the best. Call USS. They've been in business for almost 30 years now, and they have over 25,000 satisfied customers. If you've got any symptoms involving foundation repair or waterproofing issues, call the best. Call USS. USSTN.com. That's USSTN.com or 615-488-7855. 488-7855.
It is 2 o'clock. I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Right now, 49 degrees, a sunny day in Nashville. Got a complete weather forecast 2 minutes away. As the Israeli military continues pushing into Gaza, hundreds of foreign nationals trapped there have been allowed to enter Egypt, including Americans. Karen Travers has the latest from the president.
On X, the social media site formerly known as Twitter, confirms that the U.S. expects American citizens to exit Gaza today and says he expects to see more depart, quote, over the coming days. The president writes, quote, today, thanks to American leadership, we secured safe passage for wounded Palestinians and for foreign nationals to exit Gaza. He adds that his administration will not let up on this effort. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said Tuesday there are 400 Americans plus their families, a total of 1,000 people. The State Department is working to help get out of Gaza.
And right now in Middle Tennessee, MTSU's canceled classes and activities at Peck Hall today. Police were called there this morning to investigate a death. And News 2 says a deceased person was found inside the building. The death was a suicide. MTSU says there's no threat to the campus and activities at Peck Hall will resume tomorrow. And some money news, as expected, the Fed left interest rates unchanged but signaled more adjustments could come in the future. Brian Clark.
The Federal Reserve began its campaign against inflation in March of 2022 with a series of interest rate hikes. For the first time since then, it's now left that rate unchanged for consecutive meetings. The 5.4% benchmark, still the highest in 22 years, as the Fed works to bring down inflation that currently sits at 3.7%. In its statement, the Fed said it expects tighter financial and credit conditions to weigh on economic activity. There's a chance that could have the same impact as another rate hike. Fed also said the economy expanded at a strong pace in the third quarter.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Friends, it is time to talk about your health plan with yourhealthplanman.com. Don't talk about it with me. I mean, I'll talk to you all you want, but I don't know a lot about this subject. I know who does, though, Pat Davis, and yourhealthplanman.com. If you're looking for coverage, do not go online. You're going to get endless calls from call centers. They will not stop, and most of these call centers are trying to sell you a particular product. Pat does not do that. He is your health plan concierge. They have worked over 25 years to provide sound advice for health insurance needs. Their freedom of choice plan, as an example, lets you pick your doctors, and it is 30 to 60% lower than Obamacare. The monthly premiums are independent of your income, so there are no surprises. If you pay for your own health insurance, or if you're uninsured, or if you're on COBRA, or if your employer coverage is just too much money, call yourhealthplanman.com today. Now, that's the website, yourhealthplanman.com. Spell it all out. or give him a call at 855-4-PLAN-MAN. 855-4-PLAN-MAN. Tell Pat and his team that Matt Murphy sent you to yourhealthplanman.com. Welcome back. Matt Murphy Show, 206. Good afternoon. A lively discussion ongoing surrounding the Israeli-Hamas war and how that has spilled over into the United States of America with a lot of opinions about what to do regarding that conflict and, frankly, some blatant anti-Semitism that's going on, particularly on college campuses around the country, but in major cities around the state and around the country. I mean, I'm looking at a pro-Palestinian quote unquote pro-ceasefire rally that is set to begin at 2:00 on Saturday afternoon in Nashville, Tennessee. And I'm of the opinion, and I've stated it repeatedly, that if you are pro-ceasefire, you are pro-Hamas, whether you know it or not. Whether you know it or not. And I can help you understand it if you need to understand it. But granting a ceasefire to Hamas that just killed over 1,400 Israelis, you're giving them an opportunity to regroup. You're giving them exactly what they want. When Matt Murphy and Hillary Clinton agree on something, maybe we're crazy or maybe we're onto something. Joining me this hour, as he does always on these Wednesdays, is Cameron Smith of the Tennessean. Cameron, with us until 3 this afternoon. Hello.
Hi, Matt. I know that you often agree with Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
So, you know.
I mean, it's quite an experience. I don't know what to think of it.
Except for that once in future president part.
Well, all right. Well, I mean, but she did the other day said, no, pro-ceasefire is pro-Hamas because pro-ceasefire is giving Hamas what they want, an opportunity to get into the tunnels and regroup. And, you know, they look at that as, hey, free pass. We killed 1,400.
You know how we could have a ceasefire? Hamas could give up all those hostages and march right out of Gaza.
Yep. I mean, and where are all of the media organizations demanding that Hamas cease firing? Right? Why is it only on the IDF or the Israelis? Let's talk to Senator Marsha Blackburn about this. Senator Blackburn joining us on the Murphy Show hotline this afternoon. And, Senator, you and your office just put out a press release that if I did not believe it, I would not. I mean, I believe it, obviously, because I know it's true, but it is difficult to believe that there are over 500 or thereabouts Americans who are hostage in Gaza. First off, good afternoon, Senator. Thank you for being on with us. And talk to us a little bit about this revelation that you just put out.
Yes, indeed, and it's always good to join you. Thank you. What we have learned over the weekend is that there are at least 500 Americans that are in Gaza. What we also were troubled by was Jake Sullivan's remarks on Sunday on Face the Nation, where he talked about trying to get the Americans out, and they were working with Hamas to secure this release, and Hamas was making some demands. So I've got this letter to go over. I looked at, when I heard those remarks, I thought, well, we need a little bit of clarification around this. So we pulled up the U.S. code to see how they define hostage. And when you pull up 18 U.S.C. 1203, what you see is that individuals in other areas that are being held against their will, other governments or organizations that are making demands of the U.S. government. And so that is how we classify a hostage. And it is important that we get our citizens out of Gaza. Today, Hamas let some from other countries leave, and then later this afternoon, just in the last hour or so, they've allowed 5 American citizen aid workers to leave. But what they will not do is call these 500 individuals who are not being allowed to leave hostages. But here are Jake Sullivan's exact words on this. in his Face the Nation interview, and I'm going to quote him. He says, "The challenge right now is the Egyptians are prepared to let Americans and other foreign nationals out of Gaza. The Israelis have no issue, but Hamas is preventing their departure and making demands." Now, Matt, that is what I would classify, when you look at the U.S. definition, I would classify that as a hostage. And you also had John Kirby, who is the White House National Security spokesperson. On Monday, he said that Hamas was making a number of demands to allow foreign nationals to leave Gaza. But again, nobody is using the hostage word. So today, as we found out, other countries are being allowed to leave, and only 5 U.S. aid workers were allowed to leave and to get their people out. What we've done is to write Jake Sullivan over at the White House and ask what kind of contact they have with Hamas and how many Americans are going to be able to move out. How many people does the U.S. have contact with? Are they in regular contact with them? What are the demands that they are hearing from Hamas, and what they think a timeline is for getting safe passage for these individuals who are not being allowed to leave. And like I said,
Senator, this is Cameron Smith. I just wanted a clarification here. So it's not your contention that Hamas has 500 Americans in custody. Like, that's not what you're saying. You're saying they're stuck there and Hamas won't let them out. But Hamas
that
also,
by definition is
right. But hang
a
on.
hostage state.
So, but there are also, I think it was 10 or 15 or so that Hamas has in custody. So I don't want to. I hear what you're saying. I think that you're making a very important point, but those are 2 separate groups, right?
Are 2 separate groups.
Okay.
That is right.
Okay.
And you have American civilians that are aid workers and are Americans who are aid workers and American civilians who were visiting family in Gaza. Those individuals, we don't know all of their whereabouts. What we do know is that Hamas has not allowed them to leave. They could leave. They should be able to walk right through the Rafah gate into Egypt. Egypt is ready to receive them. Israel has no problem. And Jake Sullivan's comment on Sunday, and his quote again, "The challenge right now is the Egyptians are prepared to let Americans and other foreign nationals out of Gaza. The Israelis have no issue, but Hamas is preventing their departure and making demands." So you've got American citizens that are ready to leave, and it is Hamas who is not letting them out.
What, if anything, should we be doing about that, Senator?
There should be a clear directive from this White House. If you touch even one of these Americans, then we are going to take our actions. And they should be demanding that all of these individuals be removed. You know, we have heard the Israelis say for days now, everyone should move south toward the Rafah gate and get out of Gaza and out of Gaza City. And they continue to push to get people out of harm's way. We know that some of the aid trucks from the Red Cross and some of the organizations, not from UNRWA, but from other NGOs, they have gone in today with humanitarian aid. We are very concerned because past aid that has gone in has been intercepted by Hamas. And even last week, Hamas took 24,000 liters of gasoline. They took fuel. They took food. They took medical supplies that were intended for people that desperately need that humanitarian aid.
How could that not happen? I mean, they are the governing authority there, and so
Right.
it seems.
That is why some of us have said, let's continue to not put aid into Gaza.
Right.
Let's get everybody toward the Rafah Gate and to the south and clear the area, because you're not going to have people that need aid getting aid until you get rid of Hamas.
Well, and not to get too much into the weeds here, though, but the Rafah Gate is not open. I mean, the Egyptians are not allowing Palestinian refugees into Egypt, are they?
They have not been. They did allow the foreign nationals and 5 aid workers that are U.S. citizens to exit today.
Right.
And they are continuing to monitor that situation there at the Rafah Gate. They have tried to move people south so that they can get aid to them there at that Gaza side of the Rafah Gate.
So I know that you wrote an op-ed piece in the New York Post, and I would encourage people to go read it, and you can go to Martha's website, and you can find a link to it, underlying how important it is for us to not to aid Hamas, but to destroy it. And sadly, the relief package presented by President Biden would do just that. Walk us through the concept here. I think I understand it, but I want the people of Tennessee to understand where you're coming from when you discuss the ability for Hamas to use what we would think of as humanitarian aid for their own war purposes.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And whether it's the UN Relief and Works Agency that has been putting aid into Gaza, we have found out that, and of course, let me say this, Donald Trump cut all the aid to this agency because they had started to hire people that were affiliated with Hamas. And Joe Biden came along and gave them $1 billion. Now, we know that Hamas is storing weaponry, rockets, ammo, armaments in these schools and UN facilities in Gaza. We also know that they're planning to have part of this money go to the UN and then the UN distribute it. What we are saying is if you do this, then that money is going to end up with Hamas. And it is not going to go to people that need to get that aid. So that is something that we all need to understand. Now, this $106 billion package that he is talking about, there would be $14.5 billion that would be there for Israel. There would be, I think it's $3 billion or so that would be for aid in different areas, one of those being Gaza. And what we have to realize is right now, while Hamas is running Gaza, if you send that aid to Gaza, it is going to Hamas. And when you look at the fact that Iran is the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism, Iran gives Hamas about $100 million a year because Hamas is one of their proxies. And this is one of the reasons I've led that push to freeze that $6 billion so that Iran cannot get that ransom payment, that $6 billion. And it's also why I've led that effort to have the sanctions put back in place. They're still there, and Trump enforced them and drove the oil revenue for Iran from $30 billion a year down to about $10 billion a year. Biden relaxes those sanctions, and Iran is making $1 billion a week selling oil, primarily to Russia, China, and North Korea. So let's put those sanctions back in place so that they are not going to be able to make that money, because you give Iran $1, they're going to spend part of it on terrorism. They're going to spend part of it on enriching uranium. And what we have to realize is that they are a destabilizing force in the Middle East.
Senator Marsha Blackburn joining us on the Matt Murphy Show, despite the fact that I called you Martha for some reason. I have no idea why I did that, Marsha, and I thank you for not pointing it out, but I noticed it, and I'm sorry for that. Marsha Blackburn joining us. So do you believe that it is necessary for us to provide aid to Israel directly over this conflict, considering the amount of money that we continue to overspend as a country, $2 trillion annually? We already give billions of dollars to the state of Israel, our greatest allies in the Middle East. Is it necessary that they receive a supplemental in your mind?
Israel is very specific about what their needs are. They can tell you specifically what they need, why they need, and how they would use this. We have to realize they are that ally and they have stood with us. We also have to realize that Hamas and Iran wanted to blow up the idea of Saudi Arabia and Israel coming to a peace agreement. So they go in and they carry out these October 7th attacks. And we also have to realize that we cannot let Iran, we cannot let Russia, we cannot let China have a win, because their goal is to destroy Israel, to destroy the U.S. We have to be very clear-eyed about that.
Senator, thank you so much. It's always good to catch up with you, and you are clear-eyed on this subject, and I'm glad that you were able to speak directly to the people of the state of Tennessee regarding it. And here's hoping that we see a very swift conclusion to this issue by the destruction of Hamas. And as you have said, that is the way that we get to this conclusion, by destroying Hamas and giving the Palestinian people the true right to govern themselves in a peaceful fashion. Thank you for your time today.
You got it.
All right, take care. There's Marsha Blackburn. I think I called her Martha.
She was very nice about it.
I mean, she didn't even mention it. But I rarely call her by her first name, and I was searching for it, and I came up with Martha.
Her first name's Senator.
See, that's what
it's just easier.
That's why I should stick with Senator and not,
Senior Senator, or just Senior.
Yeah, you do that next time she calls. Hey, senior lady. It's better than what some callers, some super texters are calling.
Well, that's true.
They got some potty mouths over there on the super text line. 222 will reflect on that conversation, and we'll find out what's going on in Cameron Smith's world coming up in just a moment. I have found the person that you can trust when it comes to your heater needs this fall and into the winter, and it's Jeff Eddy and Efficient Heating and Cooling. If your heater's not ready, call Jeff Eddy and Efficient Heating and Cooling. Tell him I said that. Jeff Eddy can come out to your home and either offer you a first opinion or a second opinion as to what is going on with your heating unit, and to help you solve that as efficiently and as cheaply as possible. Now, sad to say, but it is true, and Jeff will tell you the same. He's going to tell you the truth about how much life you got left on that heating unit. And if it's not much, if it's time to replace, if you're just not as efficient as you should be, if you're wasting money by throwing it down a rabbit hole that is that old dated unit, then he'll tell you that. And if it's time, they are a diamond contractor with Mitsubishi Electric. They're an elite pro partner with Rheem. EfficientHVAC.net for more information about what they can do for you. They can also maintenance your unit, and they are cheaper than anyone else in the industry when it comes to maintenance calls, and they never charge you overtime because your heater doesn't know what time it is when it goes kaput. Jeff Eddy and Efficient Heating and Cooling. Call 615-784-4424, 784-4424 for Efficient.
Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn joins the show and discusses foreign aid packages over to Israel and Gaza. That and more. 2:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you much, Mac Morey, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Thank you for being around. It is 2:27. We'll get to more of your calls momentarily. Those numbers, 615-737-9986. And I'm looking at you specifically because you're holding on the line for a while there. Cameron Smith with us in his normal place on these Wednesdays in our 2 o'clock hour, just finishing up a conversation with Senator Marsha Blackburn, not to be confused with Senator Martha Blackburn, who's a different person entirely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Senator from North Dakota, something.
Martha, who's the most famous Martha? Martha Stewart?
Martha Stewart.
Martha White? That's a flower, right?
Martha Washington.
Martha Washington's a good one.
The Vineyard.
You don't get a lot of Marthas nowadays. Honestly. Kind of old school. Kind of like Gertrude's. Although I think Gertrude's coming back. Anna is next up in Brentwood. Anna, thank you for your call. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. I didn't know Marsha Blackburn could talk for 30 minutes without taking a breath. Did you?
Cameron and I were. I'm not knocking.
Awesome.
I'm not. Well, let me tell you a quick story, Anna. I would interview back in Birmingham. I was there for about 20 years in Alabama. And there was a Democrat senator from the 7th Congressional District by the name of Artur Davis. And I liked Artur. We didn't agree on anything, but he was willing to come on. And he would get frustrated with me because I would interrupt him. And one time we went to a break, and he goes, "You got to stop interrupting me." And I said, "The problem, Artur, is I ask you one question, and you answer it until I interrupt you." And so I don't want to interrupt Marsha, but man, oh, man.
You know why that happens, right? It's because she's a United States senator and nobody interrupts her. That's why.
That's right. Because everybody's like, well, she's a senator, so
right.
We should let her finish her thought.
She is not the only senator that suffers from that challenge, which, you know.
But actually, she was. I didn't mind hearing everything she presented. It's just I was amazed that she could do it without breathing.
Well, true that. What's on your mind,
That's not what
Anna?
I called.
Yeah.
Here's what I called it. This is a little bit free, but you're a person's person. You're a people person, I think, and so am I. And this is from when you said, "Who asks? Who asks?" Let me tell you why you ask. When you meet a Jewish person or a Native American person or an African American person or a Southern or a Northern, there is a whole, especially Jewish people, there's a whole breadth. There's a wonderful history that comes with them. There's a weight of information. I worked with a wonderful Jewish lady who is a well-known artist in the world. Very kind, very good to me. And there's so much Native American people, when they have that full history, you know, don't miss out on when someone comes to something and they've been brought up with a certain criteria, or their background is a religious thing, as being Jewish and being, I mean, there's just a lot of good things, maybe not good things, that come with people's backgrounds. So don't miss that when you're meeting people. Who asked? Well, I asked, like, where are you from?
But you don't ask, like, are you a Jew?
Well, no. Oh, no. I in fact, now it's gotten, you have to ask people who, I worked for an airline, so I hear people with different dialects. You say, where are you from? Because it sounds like they're from Haiti, and I can hear Haiti. Or it sounds like they're from Costa Rica, and I can hear Costa Rica. But you can't say that anymore because they might be second generation born here, and they're offended by it. You have to be really careful how you ask, like, where are you from?
Well, and I've always hated the question, where you're from, because most people mean, where do you live? Right. So if someone asks me where I'm from, I say, well, I'm from Thompson, Georgia, just outside of Augusta, Georgia. I don't live there and haven't lived there since I was 22. But, so, where are you from and it's a little bit of a pet peeve of mine. Where are you from and where do you live? Where's mama and them? Those are three different questions.
I'm from around here.
I'm from over yonder. I live down
But
below.
usually-
I live down below the Walmart.
But I think to your
you
point,
ask somebody, when it's someone you ask someone where they're from, that what all those things you just said tell me a lot about you. So, but if someone says where you're from, you can learn a lot just by how they answer that, for sure.
yeah, you can. But to Matt's point, Matt was wondering, who are the people that wander around and consciously engage people thinking of, wait a minute, are you a Jew? There's not. I just can't.
I just
imagine.
don't understand that.
That's weird.
Well, because there are people who are looking to point the finger. If you are not happy with your life or your success or what you're doing, then the best thing to do is point at everybody
Amen.
else and make a lot of noise.
Amen. It is one of the more difficult. Anna, you said a mouthful. It is and thank you. I've got to run. It is one of the more difficult things in life to do, is to understand that while bad things might happen to good people and uncontrollable by them, for the most part, the state of our condition is one individual's responsibility, and that is ours. It is 2:33 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
.233, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 49 degrees, a fair day in Nashville. Full forecast coming up in 2 minutes. Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn joined WTN's The Matt Murphy Show today and gave her thoughts on what the United States should be doing when it comes to American hostages being held in Gaza by Hamas.
There should be a clear directive from this White House. If you touch even one of these Americans, then we are going to take our actions.
She went on to say that we should be demanding that they be removed, and Blackburn also expressed her concern about all of the aid being shipped by truck getting stolen by Hamas, as a lot of it has been so far. And in Arizona, the Lori Vallow Daybell case made worldwide headlines. The so-called doomsday mom who had apocalyptic beliefs and killed her children, allegedly with her new husband. Now there's another case unfolding with similarities. Alex Stone.
In Lori Vallow Daybell's case, her children were found dead in Idaho, but she had links to Arizona. Now in a case exposed by our affiliate ABC 15 in Phoenix, another Arizona mother, along with her brother, are accused of taking her 16-year-old son to the Alaskan wilderness under a doomsday prophecy. Spring Thibodeau is accused of believing the world was ending last weekend and that she had taken the boy to the wilderness to fulfill a role in the second coming of Christ. An Alaska judge says Thibodeau has delusional beliefs about the end of the world, and she's being held on $500,000 bond.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Hey, a big shout out to Nancy. Didn't you say that was her name? Nancy called in and told Belle she didn't want to hold to go on the air. I wish she had. But she told Belle that she went down to Franklin. And just off the square there next to Gray's Pharmacy, you'll find Savory Spice. And she walked in. She probably smelled Savory Spice before she saw Savory Spice, because you smell it come down the street. Just an incredible blend and aroma of different spices and salts and whatnot. And she walked in. She said hello to Holly. They talked, and she said that it was just an incredible experience all the way around. And I'll tell you, you'll experience it as well when you walk into Savory Spice. If you're an experienced cook and you want the place where you can get all the spices that you need at the same low cost that you're getting them from the wannabe spice guys, Savory Spice is your place. But if you don't know how to cook, whatever your level of expertise, they can lead you into the kitchen through Savory Spice with different blends. I mentioned the taco soup that we just had, or the Sunday pot roast, which is there. I mean, it's just delicious stuff, easy to prepare. Thank you to the good people of Savory Spice. So do what Nancy did. Stop by either in Franklin or L&L Market in Nashville and tell them that I sent you. They'll set you up. They'll treat you right. It is Savory Spice. 2 locations, once again. One off the square in Franklin, the other L&L Market on Charlotte Pike in Nashville. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. A day, man, kind of dominated by a subject that I was led to really based on a conversation that my wife and I had several days ago. Cameron Smith is with us of the Tennessee, and you hear Cameron on Wednesdays. And on the occasion that I am off, I'm rarely off. Rarely. But on the occasion that I am, Cameron often fills in for us as well. He is also known as Ray Cecilo, by the way.
Oh, hey, Ray.
Yeah. So Cameron Romney. Cameron Conway Romney. He's giving you a middle name.
You get the
now.
middle name.
I don't understand that, but okay. It was really born of a discussion that Eric and I had. That we're watching some of the anti-Semitism in the United States, and she asked the question, and it made such sense to me the way she asked it. She's like, "Why are young people anti-Jewish? Like, what has happened in their lives that would lead them to be anti-Jewish?" Like, if you tell me that a group of people are anti-Muslim, I would say that maybe you're wrongly stereotyping all Muslim people because of certain incidents that have happened in all of our lifetimes that would lead us down that path, specifically 9/11. That makes sense. But there's not really a singular event that would lead young 20-somethings to just be blatantly anti-Semitic.
But this is the story of anti-Semitism in the United States. It has been a series of tropes that just get perpetuated indefinitely. And that 20-somethings are like, well, I don't have the job opportunities or this or that. Well, who can I blame? Oh, well, these folks are out and they're yelling and they say that
Free Palestine,
that the Jews are the great oppressors and all. Okay. And, oh, wow. I mean, this is, like you said, I got this one wrong. I truly thought that most people, when they looked over their shoulder and said, oh, the person standing with me is a Nazi, that they would have said, no, maybe my arguments are not the strongest and I should not be having this worldview. But here we are where, they're found common ground.
Am I wrong that it feels like, and maybe it's too early, and maybe we should give a little latitude to the major mainstream networks that they will be on top of these stories. But it feels to me when the president of the United States was a Republican, specifically Donald Trump, when they felt like they could take advantage of cherry picking certain words that he said, for example, in Charlottesville, Virginia, and claiming that he is a racist or an anti-Semite, that they perpetuated these stories. And it's when I was pushing back, like, wait a minute, I understand that there's bad people and I understand that there's quote-unquote neo-Nazis, but you would be hard-pressed, in my opinion, to fill Nissan Stadium with every one of them in America.
Right.
But they were pushing that narrative as if they were on every street corner. Now we see them on college campuses. We see these folks being blatantly anti-Jewish, and even to the point that they're calling for the death of Jews, this Cornell student. And I just don't see a lot of coverage of it or a lot of examination as to how some of these so-called pro-Palestinian protesters are very similar in their language to those neo-Nazis that they told us were on every street corner 2 or 3 years ago.
Well, those aren't the same thing. And we seem to, a lot of the media seems to be pivoting when it's useful to say, well, this whole killing of the Jews thing and targeting them, that seems bad. So it's really pro-Palestine. I'm like, but those people that are saying that are saying this too at the same time, in the same event, in the same context. Well, but, the Palestinian plight, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, you can make arguments for a two-state solution and why the situation in Gaza is untenable and wrong. You can do all that all day long without being a racist. And that, to me, is the thing that the media is ignoring is this is just abject racism. Like, let's call it what it is. That's what's happening. You can make policy arguments and protest to your heart's content about what should be the status of Palestine. But again, you don't have to be anti-Jew. And that seems to be everywhere right now.
I understand the sentiment of ceasefire. But I also believe that any call for a ceasefire while hostages are being held by one group is a little premature, if not a lot premature. And I'm being a little flip when I say that. I think pro-ceasefire is pro-Hamas.
Yes.
Right?
I don't see how you look at it and say, well, you know what? You went in, raped, just did brutal, vile acts and did this stuff. Took hostages, retreated into your civilian hideaways, and now the answer is, well, we should stop. That seems to me like there's an obvious answer here. Let all the people go, and then we can stop. And then we're going to talk about what we're going to do with you. But you've already said we're going to do this again and again and again. So it's not like the terms for a ceasefire are really great when you're saying, I'm going to do the brutal, evil things and want to wipe you out constantly. How do you sort of have there is no peaceful resolution with Hamas.
Well,
that's
and
not
it
a
is
thing.
a part of their modus operandi, too,
Right.
that they duck their head out from below the wall, right? And they throw a rock and they hit you in the head with the rock. And then they duck back behind the wall and start yelling ceasefire.
Yes.
Right? And they'll do that until they get enough of a chorus of ceasefire that the guy that I threw the rock at will go, okay, well, everybody wants me not to, destroy him, so I won't destroy him.
Hamas is a bunch of terrorists and cowards.
Right.
But
they're also the ruling government of Gaza.
Right, which is hilarious when I see the media talking about this report from the authorities in Gaza says, I'm like, guys,
that's Hamas.
That's Hamas. That's Hamas. But that's where we are. And I would say if Hamas is willing to die for their convictions, just head north.
Yeah.
Just do that. Come out. Like, you can shoot at all. You can shoot. You can do your things. But right now, you're hiding behind civilians and causing civilian deaths.
Let's play a game real quick in the 2 or 3 minutes that we have left of something or nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And I know firmly where I am on this. So James Comer came out this morning and kind of put the money trail together for us yet again. And we've seen some of this in the past. But this shows that President Joe Biden at one point took a $40,000 check from his family members right after they received a bunch of money from Chinese business associates. He posted this on X, formerly known as Twitter, that the Biden family took money from Chinese business associates and then wired it to Joe Biden shortly thereafter. When I say something or nothing, I don't mean to us. I mean, will it break the waterline with the mainstream media?
No.
Because they're just blatantly protecting Joe Biden?
Yeah, at this point, I think they're like, there's something here, but there's enough stuff going on.
We're just not going to cover it?
Yeah, we don't have to cover it.
Because we can cover Israel. And we can
cover everywhere. We can go Israel, Ukraine. We can go a million different places before being like, guys, can you explain this?
Mike Johnson is an election denier.
Right.
Before we
that's all of this. And then they're going to, somebody will ask, Peter Doocy or somebody else will ask the White House, what about this? And they'll say, well, we've been through this. We're not going to address these just spurious allegations again and again and again. And that's what they'll say, and that'll be it.
It's, I first noticed it, and I know that it happened plenty of times before her, but I first noticed it, and I call it the Hillary Clinton manner in which you handle a crisis. And when you get caught doing something, You go to a friendly, you do the interview. The friendly at some point in the interview says, hey, what about all these accusations? You bat them away, knowing that there will be no follow. Oh, this is ridiculous. We've spoken to this, yada, yada, yada. And then any other interview you do, you say, I've already spoken to this.
Yes.
We've dealt with that. That's old news. It's the way that she handled her business. It didn't, thankfully, work for her. And it's the way that the Bidens will handle it as well.
Yeah, and I sadly, and I've said this all along, I don't know that we've done all the legwork to connect all the dots, but dang, we're getting close.
Comer's doing some work.
I mean, this looks way more. You got to deal with this, and
well, especially because Joe Biden, he's on record as emphatically saying, "I had no knowledge, no this, no that, no that." Well, then how are all these checks showing up?
What is this?
Yeah, I mean,
I did not say that. That's not. I did not say that.
He didn't say that.
No.
Joe says he didn't say that. 2:50, I'll say this. We're going to scoot. We'll take a short time out and then come back and find out what Brian Wilson's doing this afternoon on the drive. He'll be with us next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. All right, I failed to bring up the subject that I teased at the beginning of the show, but we're going to do it tomorrow. It's a bit of an evergreen. It's a little bit of a disagreement, a loving disagreement between my wife and myself regarding weekend activities. Specifically, Erica wants me
You're wrong.
I am not wrong. Erica wants me to do something during the Georgia-Missouri game. She wants me to go to the Auburn-Vandy game, and I can't do it. And so I'm
wrong.
I'm in a spot of bother. I'm in a little bit of a trouble spot. Maybe I should lean on Brian Wilson. He seems to be able to easily navigate these marital waters with he and Cabana wife. But I think.
Listen, I get the last word in every conversation that we have, and those last words are "yes, dear."
You know what? You learn in marriage, Brian, that there aren't a lot of hills worth dying on.
No. Is this the hill you want to die on? No, that's a question I ask myself all the time. But listen, I'm very lucky that I have a wife who, I mean, she's one in a million, and I know you've seen, the kind of person that she is, and the kind of person she is when she does for others, and she's just a sweetheart of a gal.
She's standing right there, isn't she, Brian?
No, she's not here. She's not here.
Hey, what did I asked Cameron Smith a minute ago? I mean, this James Comer Oversight Committee, this is. I mean, smoke, and now fire. We got receipts.
Well, it's not just the $40,000 that seems to have come indirectly through a bunch of shell corporations into Joe Biden's account from China. It's also a $200,000 check that his brother wrote to him saying it's for repayment of a debt. Well, the thing is that Comer's got the bank accounts of Jim Comer and Hunter Biden. I mean, James Biden, and Hunter Biden.
Mm-hmm.
Well, where is the evidence that money went into James Comer's account from Joe Biden?
Well,
in other words, if he's repaying the loan, where was the loan?
That's a great point, right?
Yeah.
The loan had to happen at some point.
Found it, yeah.
And if you can't find it, then that tells us that maybe the loan story is just a crock of baloney. Well, Brian's got it all for you this afternoon on The Drive. He's coming up in mere seconds right after McMaury. McMaury's got the newscast, and The Drive begins post-haste. We'll be listening and hope you are as well. We're back tomorrow for a Thursday edition of The Murphy Show starting at high noon. Until then, hug your loved ones. Have a wonderful afternoon, folks. So long.